Hi, in this video we're going to be looking at using the Zoom H1 as an audio interface for Macintosh and Windows computers. We'll also go through how to use the H1 as an input source for Zoom calls and also for recording videos from your laptop as well. Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how to make a recording on a MacBook and on a Windows laptop using the H1 recorder as the input source. So I'm just going to talk you through the process. I'm going to go through the process. I'll switch between the camera and my screen when I'm editing to show you what's going on, and I'll edit out any of the boring bits as well. So we've got our H1. Hopefully you can see that on the camera there. Yeah. And the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to plug this into our computer. I'll move my headphones out of the way. So I'm using one of the newer style MacBooks, so I need to use a ridiculously expensive cable to plug into my Mac first before I can use my micro USB cable to plug it in. So I'm going to go into there and then plug it into the side of the H1.
Something went wrong. Try again in a few seconds.
My Google Home thinks that I'm talking to her. So, in the previous video that you've probably seen about the H1n, you've seen me plug this in and turn it on. I'll run through it quickly as we do this, just so you get a good idea. So my H1 is currently plugged in to the computer. I'm going to turn it on. The options on the screen there are audio interface or card reader. So we're going to select audio interface with the right button there. And this is a PC or a Mac, so we're going to go right again. And we're going to power the recorder via bus. That means that the laptop is actually powering the recorder. Okay, on the recorder side, at least for now, that's kind of all we need to do. We can check the level if we want by turning up the gain, and we can see that we've got audio coming through on the recorder. So we'll leave that just there for now, and I'll turn the brightness back up on the camera. There we go, great. Okay, so moving over to our laptop here, we now need to be able to see the Zoom on our laptop. So on Mac, I'm going to open up my system preferences and I'm going to go to sound, maybe unsurprisingly. There we go. So on our input here, we can now see H-series stereo track USB audio. And we can actually see an input level meter on the screen here, which is very useful. And we'll see if I turn the gain all the way up on this recorder, we'll see that that level goes up as I'm talking, and if I turn it all the way down, we'll see it disappears. So we know we've got some level going into our computer, so that's great. We can also set this as the main output for the computer. So we can set it as our headphone output. And what I'm going to do to test that is I'm going to plug in some headphones. Yours will undoubtedly look slightly different to these. And I'm going to plug that into the headphone or the line out socket. Currently that's set to 74, we might turn that up. And yes, I can hear myself speaking. Let's find some audio and play some audio and see if it comes through my headphones now. And that advert audio is instantly coming out of my headphones, which is great. So, quite simply, that is our recorder now set up as the output and the input for our laptop by default. It's as simple as that, and the audio from the XY pair on the front here is the main audio going into my laptop. So what I would do at this point is maybe turn around that audio recorder, point it vaguely towards my face. There we go. Okay, so at this point we could open up Zoom Okay, so now we've got Zoom open, we can go into the Zoom settings and go to audio. And because this is our default audio device, Zoom has already selected it as the audio input for Zoom. So our audio input and output is currently going through the H1 and it's acting just like a sound card. So that's fantastic, and we can use that, or you can use that for Zoom meetings, and you can use that if you're talking in your performance meetings or something else as well. Next up, let's look at recording in Pro Tools with this. So Pro Tools is open. I'm going to create a new session, and because this is kind of just a throwaway session, I'm going to call this Delete Me. And the important thing to look at here is this sample rate. So the sample rate needs to match whatever is on the front of the Zoom recorder. And we can see that currently on the front of the Zoom recorder, you can see that there, maybe you might not be able to see that, it says 48K. So that means our sample rate is 48 kilohertz. So instead of 44.1, I'm going to select 48. Desktop's fine, delete me, everything else totally fine. And there we go. So in Pro Tools, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a stereo track. To do that, we go to Track and New. Stereo, we're going to create an audio track and we'll call it H1. Just like that. And now when I press the record arm on the H1, it does nothing. And that's probably because we need to set up the H1 in our playback engine. Yeah, there we go. So our playback engine is currently set to Soundflower. And once again, we need to select the H-Series stereo track USB audio to do this. Pro Tools will want to close your session and reopen it. Press yes to that. We can exit out of playback engine at this point. And when Pro Tools reopens, we're going to check on the input for this track. So currently it's grayed out, and we need to go to interface and select, by default it says front left, front right, that's totally fine. So that is now selecting the microphones on the front of the H1. And if I press record now, we can see that my voice is coming in through the H1. If I tap this, you can see that that audio is coming in, and it's not coming in when I tap the laptop. So it's definitely working through our H1. So if you've got Pro Tools on your laptop, that's it. That's all you need to do. You can press record now, and you can start recording things directly into your laptop. So if you prefer to work like that, you prefer to position your microphone somewhere and play into it rather than carry it around or set it on the side and then transfer the files afterwards, that's fine. And you can play back from Pro Tools through this as well. And you can do that by selecting, currently it's on output 1 and 2, there's a lot of outputs here, but we can check in our inputs and outputs that, yeah, front left and front right is an output, so we can go into that and we can check that it's mapping to the right output for output 1 and 2. So yeah, that's all fine. So if we played our recording back now, we'd be able to hear whatever was coming out of it. So if I go, hello, 1, 2, my name is Fred, blah, blah, blah. We've got our recording, and we can press play. And we can hear it back, and it works perfectly. So that's really good. I'm going to exit out of Pro Tools now. Instead, at this point, I'm going to open up Audacity. So if you're not familiar with Audacity, Audacity is free. It's a digital audio workstation, similar to Pro Tools, similar to Logic. It's totally open source. Is it as good? Maybe, maybe not. But what it will allow you to do is record music, play it back, edit it, and actually create songs and create tracks in there. So it's a really good piece of software for doing some basic audio tasks. So when we first open Audacity, the first thing we'll see is on here, we're currently working with Core Audio. So what we want to be able to do is change that. There we go. So we're going to go from built-in microphone to H-series USB recorder. And we're going to record 2 channels from that. That's fine. And our output is also going to be the H-series audio recorder as well. If you've not got this bar, you should be able to set this up in Preferences and Devices. And we've got our H-series stereo track USB audio just there. And one thing to note as well is that our project rate down here needs to also be 48. To start recording into Audacity, it couldn't be simpler really. All we need to do at this point is to press record, and our recording will start to record into the window. We can see the waveform coming in there, and that's our recording. Just like Pro Tools, you can drag in other files from other places if you want to record along to them. If we play this back, we can hear it, and so we can play along to other files that are playing on this timeline. So we can hear everything that's going on here from the first track whilst recording the second one. And if I press record again, we can hear everything that's happening from these tracks up here. And in short, that is how to get audio into Pro Tools, Audacity and Zoom when you're working on a Mac laptop with a Zoom H1 recorder. It's really quite simple. One thing I neglected to mention there was that you can use the H1 as the audio source for recording a video from your laptop. So the way to do this is, I prefer to use QuickTime Player for this. So if you open up QuickTime Player and go to File, you can create a new movie recording. If I press that, the movie recording window will open up and you'll see your face on the screen. And what you can do down here, just next to the record button, is you can select your microphone. So just here we've got H-series stereo track USB audio recorder selected, plus the FaceTime HD camera. We could go for maximum quality. Let's see what that does. Always good to have a bit more quality if you can. And from there, what you can do is you can press record and you can record your video for the student concert or for your recital with higher quality sound on a laptop, and it's all going to come together as one. You don't need to sync it or anything like that. And then you can submit it from there or upload it to YouTube, do whatever you need to do with that content. So really simple, just to set up a high quality audio recording to go with the video recording from your laptop. It's just as easy to plug in a really high quality webcam as well and do the same thing in QuickTime and select your webcam, select your audio device and have a really good, nice recording from that as well. Okay, so now we're going to look at setting up the H1 as an audio interface on a Windows laptop. So here I have a pretty beastie Alienware laptop that we're going to plug the Zoom into. I'll show you the H1 setup on the Windows audio devices first. I'll also show you it on probably a Zoom call setup, and we'll experiment with some DAWs after that as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the Zoom, and that goes just into the side port there, just like we did before with the Mac. I'm going to turn it on, And you've seen this before at this point. It gives me the menu with audio interface, and I'm going to select audio interface, PC and Mac, and bus power. And now we can see the audio interfaces on screen. I've got the gain up a little bit already, so it's doing something. And I'm going to plug in my headphones just so that I can check that this is all working. I'm just going to put that onto the side there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check that the headphone output, which is on the right-hand side of the screen just next to the time, I'm going to check that that is selected correctly. So we have on this laptop speakers and headphones, and it is selected as headphones just there. I'm also going to go to the Start menu and go to Control Panel. And I'm going to go to Sound. And we can see the headphones selected in there. And if we go to recording, we can see our microphone is actually set up as default as well as the H series stereo track USB audio. If I turn the gain up on the H1, we can see that the gain goes up. And if I turn it all the way down, we can see that it disappears. So we know that we're definitely getting audio from this H1 into our computer. So that's great. I'm going to exit out of that now, and just like on the Mac, to set up these in Zoom, we're going to go to the home of Zoom. So if we're going to set these up in Zoom, we go to the settings and we go to audio, and on our headphones and our microphone we've got H series USB audio, and the microphone is the H series as well. So that's already set up, and we can start working with Zoom. Okay, so if we want to record into a DAW on Windows, we can absolutely use Audacity again. If you've got a full copy of Pro Tools, you can use that. What I'm going to use for this is Pro Tools First, and that is Avid's free version of Pro Tools. Getting audio in there is a little bit different, a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to run you through the steps that I've taken in order to do that. So the first thing that I've done is on our sound window, which is in Control Panel. I'm checking the settings for headphones, the USB audio here. I'm going to go on Properties and Advanced. And I'm checking that this sample rate here, which says 48,000 hertz, matches the sample rate on the front of the recorder, which also says 48. It says 48K actually. That's just kilohertz. So we've done that there, and we're going to do the same for the microphone in the recording tab. And that also says 48,000 hertz, which is good. I don't think you can change the sample rate on the front of this recorder, so we've got to work at 48 when we're working on our computers like this. The next thing that I've done is that I have gone into my browser, and again we'll get rid of that annoying stuff, and I'm searching for this program called ASIO for All. So this is an audio driver for Windows which allows different pieces of input and output audio devices to actually talk to each other properly. So I've downloaded the latest version at the top of this. That's all you need to do, just install it as a normal program. It's super easy and a super small install, so everyone should be able to install this. And when it installs, it puts some additional sound options onto your computer. And if I open up ASIO for All offline settings, comes up with this little blue window, and by default your default sound card might be turned on over here. You can turn on and off these inputs and outputs for ASIO by double clicking. So what we want to see is our H series stereo USB audio recorder turned on both of these, and in this settings section here, just make sure that you always have resample checked just here, and you can exit out of that. I'm now going to boot up Pro Tools First, and now that Pro Tools First is loaded, I'm going to create a new session, and I'm just going to call it Delete Me as I usually do, and press create. That's going to load up this session, and the first thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to go to setup and I'm going to go to playback engine. Now in both versions of Pro Tools, playback engine is where we select our sound card, and we've got the Windows audio device, which would be in here before. We've got another ASIO device here, but we've also got ASIO for all version 2, and that is the one that we want. Hopefully it will come up with 48 kilohertz just here, and we can optimize for recording or playback. So if you're doing recording into Pro Tools here, the recording option will make Pro Tools work with a little bit less latency, so it's easier for you to record in time to whatever you're working on. But we can go for playback as well, and that's for if you're working on a mix and not recording anything in. So for now, we're going to go for record. Press OK. If you've changed audio devices, Pro Tools will ask you to close and reopen. Just say yes. And then we're going to go to track, and we're going to go to new. And because the H1 is a stereo recorder, we're going to create a stereo track, and we'll just call it H1 for now. Okay, so on our inputs and outputs here, we can see on interface, our input is stereo track USB audio, so that's great. And our output is also that. So if I press record arm now, as we can see, we have some audio coming in through here. And if I press record, it records that audio into Pro Tools, which is good. And if I press stop and press play, I can play it back. Now, Pro Tools First isn't as fully featured as the normal version of Pro Tools, but it should give you a good flavor of what you can do within Pro Tools, and it does allow you to export out tracks just like you would in normal Pro Tools. So you can at the very least record and edit within here, or import audio files from your recorder if you find that easier, and just work with headphones into your laptop. So I think actually what I'd recommend is that you use Pro Tools first, and maybe a little bit of Audacity if you need to use it. Okay, that's everything for today. I hope that gave you an idea of how you can use the Zoom H1 as an interface and the different things that you can do with it on a Windows or a Mac operating system.